Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another video on ECG. I am Dr. Wajid Shabir. I have done residency in cardiology and currently I am working as a registrar in cardiology department. This is the ECG which we are going to discuss today. But before starting the discussion, as always, pause your video, note down the findings and diagnose it with yourself so that at the end of the video you can compare your findings and diagnoses with the discussion done in this video. So let's begin the discussion on this case. As you know, the first thing which we look at on an ECG is rhythm. For rhythm, we will look at the rhythm strip, which is a long lead at the bottom of this ECG. As you can see that there are prominent and upright P waves before each QRS complex. The presence of upright and prominent P waves before each QRS complex in rhythm strip means that this is a sinus rhythm. After the rhythm, next thing we look at on an ECG is heart rate. For heart rate, we will select a QRS complex which lies on broad vertical line, and between this QRS complex and next QRS complex, the large boxes are calculated as 300, 150, 100, 75, 60 and 50. So the heart rate in this case is 50 beats per minute. So this is a bradycardia. Next is axis. For axis we look at the direction of QRS complex in lead 1 and lead AVF. In lead 1 you can see that the QRS complex is positive. Similarly, in lead AVF the direction of QRS complex is upwards. So by applying the rule of thumb, the axis in this case is normal axis. After the axis, the most prominent finding which we can see on this ECG is presence of ST elevation in lead 2, lead 3 and lead AVF. There is around 2 to 3 millimeter ST elevation in inferior leads, that is lead 2, 3 and AVF. So by definition, any ST elevation of 1 millimeter or more in 2 or more contiguous leads is consistent with ST elevation MI, except for lead V2 and V3 where we have a criteria based on age and sex. Similarly, you can find there is ST depression in lead 1 and lead AVL. This ST depression in lead 1 and AVL is basically a reciprocal chain to ST elevation in inferior leads. So this patient has inferior wall ST elevation MI with reciprocal changes in lead 1 and AVL. Now if we look at lead 2 again, we can find another important thing, that is here you can see that the P wave is followed by QRS complex, whereas this P wave is not being conducted. The next one is followed by QRS complex. Similarly, the next beat is not being conducted. So you can see that one sinus beat is being conducted while other beat is being blocked, which means that this is 2 into 1 AV block. However, if you focus on these beats, you can see that there is P wave followed by QRS complex, then there is another P wave, but there is prolongation of PR interval as compared to the preceding PR interval. While in the next cycle there is missed beat. The P wave is probably, if we march the P waves, we will probably find the P wave within this T wave. Again there is a P wave which is being conducted, and there is 2 into 1 AV block. So the rhythm here is sinus rhythm with 2 into 1 AV block with intermittent Mobitz 1 AV block. Other findings include a ST depression about 1 millimeter with T wave inversions in lead V2. The presence of ST depression in lead V2 means that possibly there is posterior wall involvement. So to rule out the involvement of posterior wall in case of an inferior wall MI, we have to use extra leads, that is V7, V8 and V9. In this way we will able to rule in or rule out the posterior wall MI. Before calling it a day, we must look at the QT interval. Here we can find that the QT interval is about 440 milliseconds, which is within the normal limits. So to sum up the findings, there is a sinus rhythm with normal axis, there is inferior wall ST elevation MI, and there is 2 into 1 AV block with intermittent Mobitz 1. The QT interval is normal. Now, what should be the treatment of such cases? Whenever you find such patient with ST elevation MI in ER, you have to decide about the revascularization strategy. Of course, the primary PCI should be the default approach, but if you are in a center where there is no primary PCI available, then you have to decide whether you can transfer the patient to a primary PCI facility within 120 minutes. If you can transfer the patient to another facility which has primary PCI available, then you should transfer the patient to that facility. Otherwise, if you think that you cannot transfer the patient to a primary PCI facility within 120 minutes, then you should go with thrombolysis if there are no contraindications. But if there are contraindications to thrombolysis, then you should shift the patient to a primary PCI facility. So this is all for today. Hopefully you liked the video. For more videos, kindly subscribe to this channel and stay tuned. Allah Hafiz and take care till next time.